Hello, this will be the first of a couple of videos on how to create a basic website using HTML, Python, SQLite 3, and a couple other things that are generally already installed on Macs. Some of the things that I've already mentioned that you'll need, if you go into Terminal here, this will be very important. One of the things that you will need is Python. It may say Python 2.7, which is a pre-installed version. It's pretty old, but that's fine for the website that we will be creating. We can see right here that we have it. And then there's also SQLite 3. This should also be installed. And we can see right here, we have it. And by the way, to exit out of these things, you do Control-D on a Mac. The other thing that you'll be using frequently is the terminal, or this command line. And to navigate your Mac in all the files that you will be creating, it's important, or helpful at least, to know certain commands. For example, pwd prints where you currently are. And so these dashes represent a hierarchy, and these are different steps in the hierarchy. Really, we have root, and then underneath that is users, and beneath that is Dylan Wang. And directories you can kind of think of as folders within folders. And if we go into Finder here, you can see on my desktop, I have like folders within folders within folders. And so those are all technically just directories. Another thing that will be very important is this command cd, or change directory. And as the name suggests, it allows you to change directory. So if you see pwd right now, shows us that we're here, and we can list, and this is everything that's in Dylan Wang. I believe one of these should be master folder. Yep, and it auto completes for me. And so now we can see that we're in master folder. One way to get out of a folder, to move one step up, is you do cd ... and now you can see that we're back into Dylan Wang. We were in master folder, and now we're out. Now that we know some commands for the terminal, the reason why it's important is so that you can organize your work into different directories. So for example, if I'm to open up all my Python code, we see we have this master folder up top, and within that we have a couple files and a couple folders. And so I would suggest for this website to organize it in a similar fashion. With underneath master folder, we have website design with these files, which I will have linked below. Both of these are useful in getting user data. Parse is useful in getting and sorting user data. Header and footer is useful for allowing you to write HTML code a bit easier. It's kind of just a formatting guide. And then outside of website design, we also have SQL work. So this is also where you will be accessing files that can alter your database. So to make our own directory, we see that we're at users and Dylan Wang. So if we list right here, we should see a master folder. Yep, we can make a new directory. So the command is mkdir. Let's call it testing files. And so we've made it. You can't see anything, but it's made it. So what we can do is to check that it is there, we can type in ls into Dylan Wang, and right here we see the folder testing file. So if we change directory into testing files, auto completes, and here, yep, there's nothing because we haven't created anything in this folder or directory. So what we can do is make a directory, and let's call it SQL work. So we make that, then we can also make directory, let's say website code. And now that we've made these two directories or folders, if we list everything in the testing files folder, we see these two things which we just created. So that is the purpose of all these pwd or cd or mkdir commands. It's allowing you to stay organized so that when you're running several files, you're able to run them seamlessly, and you won't have any trouble when you're trying to access certain things from different files if they're all in one directory. All right, another thing that will be important in making your Python runnable or executable to a server. In other words, so your Python code can be run, is chmod plus x. Plus x just means it has now become executable, and then you type in the name of your file. So right here, let's just say home.py. You can do something like that. Next up is to download this thing called a CGI server. I will have a file attached below, but just to kind of explain what a CGI server is, it stands for Common Gateway Interface, and it's used to connect executable programs that we will be writing or you will be writing, like Python or Java or stuff of that sort. And it allows the code to generate web pages. So to give a brief explanation of what CGI server does, here we can see the user bin. We also see certain imports that are universals. You don't have to download anything onto your computer. You can just import this directly. And then you have all this code, which isn't too important as of right now. And then this number right here is important. This is essentially the port that your website will be running on. On the internet, there are thousands of ports, and it is up to you as to which port you decide to run yours on. And so then to run the CGI server, you go over here in your terminal. You go to the directory that the CGI server is in. So the way that we've organized it should be right here in the master folder. So if we type in Python CGI server, it's up and running. And as of right now, I have CGI server running a website. So what you do is you type in to your browser localhost : the port number 8000, which should match up with this number right here, right? And then we have the code or whatever the CGI server is running. So in this case, I have it running home tester.py. And so here we go. I'll get to this later, but we see that the CGI server is working and that on port 8000, if you type in home tester.py, the CGI server allows the user to access the code in home tester. One thing that will be needed on all your Python files is this text right here. And basically what this does is it allows the CGI server, the thing that'll be allowing your Python code to become a web browser, to read this. Another thing to become more familiar with, just to make creating a website a little bit easier, is learning some basic HTML code. And so HTML code is how you format a website. So here we just see opening, closing HTML. This just is indicates where the HTML code is. Here it's pretty intuitive. You see the header, you have the head, there's a title, there's a link, which it'll appear on the website like this, and the actual file will be like, the actual link will be this. There's also the body. This is where most of your work will be, or your text will be. This is just like a header. You can also do make it a body, and then you put in your text here. To explain how this website will work in general in terms of the structure, what you will have is something that looks a little bit like this. So I haven't quite explained the database yet, but from previous knowledge, I feel like most people understand that database is kind of just a bunch of columns with different data, and the way that you access that is through SQLite 3, which is something I mentioned earlier on your computer. If I go here, we can see SQLite 3 again, yep, right here. And so this will allow you to access your database, alter your database, and interact with your database. So that's very important. First, you will have the database, which is where all the information would be. And then it moves to Python code. It can be processed. It's compiled, and it's HTML. This is then converted, or not converted, but translated to the browser side through CGI Server. And hopefully it will look nice on your browser with whatever information you want to display. And so now to focus on the Python code, compile this HTML, CGI Server, and browser part, we'll kind of just ignore this part for now. We'll work on connecting Python and HTML together. And so one of the first concepts that kind of comes up is this idea of a query string. And a query string allows a website to interact with a user. So if there's ever a form that needs to be filled out, once that form is filled, the information will be in the structure of a query string in a name value pair. So let's say you have a form that looks something like this, name and color. Once you've input the information, the query string will look something like name equals username and color equals red, just to give an idea of what a query string looks like. And so then with Python code, what you can do is parse through this, search through it, figure out the values that you want, most likely username and their color, in this case red, and utilize it for the user's experience. And so this can be printing out their name once they've filled in a form. Hello, Thomas Jefferson or something, in the color red. That's one way to indicate that you've used their information that they've given you. And attached in the description will be a parse file, and that is basically pre-written code that reads through a query string or receives a query string and outputs a dictionary, something along the lines of this. And so it allows you, the programmer, to go in and say, let's say this dictionary dot get of name, and hopefully it will return something like username. And so that will be pre-written for you just so that you will be able to easily access user data. And so another thing that is important is there's this idea of HTML code, right? But as of right now, this is all static. There's no way to really change this or alter this. For example, it's difficult to try and print out a user's name right here if it's all just hard-coded string. You're using Python, so your website is dynamic. But CGI Server in the browser reads HTML, so the way that you integrate these two is in Python, print the parts of HTML that will be static, so you'd print stuff like this. This probably isn't going to work, but you print stuff like this, and then if you wanted to, let's say right here, you could do something like username. If you had a username outside, and so then this would print their username. That's the reason why you're using Python in this case. So with this, I've created a header and footer file, which does that for you. So you have this idea of a header that opens up text for you. This looks a little bit different because this is customized to a website that I made with these three files, but you'll have a lot of this stuff, which is simple styling, just opening a header and a footer to close out the website. This just makes it easier for you to focus on the Python code that you will be writing and not having to worry about the syntax of the HTML code in compiling and things of that sort. And so to summarize what I just talked about, basically we figured out what applications are needed to create a website, which again include SQLite 3 right here, Python, this terminal, which is very important, CGI Server, which allows for Python to connect with the browser, which I will again attach in the description. I know I didn't mention the database, but that'll be very important down the road, and that's why SQLite 3 is required in order to access, create, insert, to alter a database.